Hey everybody, welcome to episode 81 of Tuesdays with Perry. I'm going to get Perry on the line just a second. We're going to be talking about Joe Biden. Apparently Joe Biden is going on a media blitz to assure the American people that it was just a fluke on debate night and that it was because he was jet lagged. But people are still calling for a replacement. What are they going to do about Kamala Harris? All the Democrats are freaking out, including the donors. So what's going to happen between now and the election, and even more so, what's going to happen between now and the Democratic convention? Let's get Perry on the line.
Hello.
Hey, Perry, welcome back to the podcast, Rudy's Revelation, Tuesdays with Perry. Thanks for joining me tonight, Perry. So, what a conundrum for the Democrats. What is happening? What is happening here? What is happening with the Democrats? What is happening with Joe Biden's ticket? It's the Biden-Harris 2024 ticket. It all started with a debate. It seems like we were proven right that Joe Biden has some sort of senility issues. Everybody thinks so now. What do you think is going to happen between now and the convention specifically?
Well, first I have to say, coming right out of the box, I disagree with you. I don't think it was suddenly apparent on Thursday night. As people like you and I and many Republicans have said, go all the way back to the campaign of 2020, it ain't the same Joe. And over the past 4 years, you could see as each month went by, or at least every season of the year went by, you could see he was not doing well, and he was getting worse as time dragged on. So we've been saying this now for 4 years. The Democrats have called us just about every name possible, including age discriminating and everything else in between. So all Thursday did was illustrate not so much to the Democrats, because they've been lying about this since the campaign of 2020. All this did was bring to a head what people had in the back of their minds for the past 4 years, including Democrats. And so this is not new. This is a continuation of what we've been saying. And it was so bad that they're in such a conundrum because of Joe. It's not that there's no easy fix for them. There isn't a fix for them. Right now, they are bleeding arterially. And all they're trying to do right now is figure out a way to stop the bleeding. Because as I said to your audience back on Saturday during your special report, they have put themselves in this position, and there is no way for them to get out. They have nowhere to go. Yes, they could replace him with Hildebeest. You and I have talked about that both on mic and in private. We've talked about, I thought at the end of the debate, and when we last talked on your show during the special report on Saturday evening, my point was it's going to be Gavin Newsom. Now, after enough time to reflect on my thinking, I'm more in line with what you were saying back on Saturday, which is, it's more likely going to be someone like Hildebeest, or, not that it's going to happen, maybe Michael Obama, or Kamala herself isn't going to go away. It could be any one of those people. It might be Shapiro from Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is, I've had time to reflect, and now the more I think about it, it's not going to be Newsom, Rudy, and I'll tell you why I don't think it's going to be Newsom. As big of a narcissist as Uncle Joe is, Gavin Newsom makes that look like child's play, because he doesn't have a Republican Party in California to compete against him. The only Republican that had a shot of holding the governor's mansion has already decided to go back and make his money in Hollywood after a failed governorship. And why was that? Because Arnie went ahead and listened to his Kennedy wife and put a far leftist in the position of administration after the first year of his governorship. And then that went into the toilet. That's the last Republican to hold a statewide office in California. And Gavin Newsom has, because of that, benefited. He's never really been challenged. He doesn't want to risk his political cachet on a losing campaign. There's no way. He wants to be in a position in 4 years to run for what the Democrats hope will be an open seat. And I say hope because of the conversations you and I have had about the 22nd Amendment. And so he doesn't think anyone can stop him in 2028. So it's not going to be him, because he's not going to so-called take one for the team. He's too selfish.
Right.
So that leaves Hildebeest. Why Hildebeest? Because they already know she's a goner. First of all, remember at the closing days of the campaign in 2016, she had her head on a swivel. She looked like a bobblehead. She couldn't control her neurological problems. So it'll be a short campaign for her. She can lose with some relative dignity, and that'll be that. This is what I see coming.
Yeah.
Because they can afford to sacrifice her.
So
there's got to be a sacrificial lamb.
So you think the Democrats during a convention are going to sidestep the ticket? I mean, the delegates, it's just a hard thing to unravel. It seems like Joe is digging in his heels, and so is Dr. Jill Biden is digging in her heels. And with Kamala in there, it's a hard road to hoe to get rid of her, to get somebody else on the ticket. Joe's got all the delegates already. He would have to have a health episode. So he would really have to be completely infirmed for this to even take place. It still might be a possibility. My prediction is still that they're going to let Kamala Harris be president for a few months, but they're going to try to front another ticket, which means between now and August, something would have to happen to Joe. Otherwise, I think he's going to go through with it, and it's a sad thing for America, but I think that's the case. Who knows what happens, closer to the election. By the way, breaking news, the United States government is spending $170 million on a Moderna avian flu vaccine.
Well, isn't that interesting? I don't remember us talking about wanting to invest more money in Moderna.
Yeah, so that's another warning sign flashing red right there. So parse it out for me. Let's unpack this. Let's
talk about Uncle Joe, because you're absolutely correct. Based on what he said immediately, I mean, within an hour of walking away from the podium on Thursday night, he was at a Waffle House telling everyone how he's ready to go. And although I did not see the stump speech, I heard it was very similar in what he said morning on Friday to a crowd out at the airport. He was making it very clear, this is a one-off. You haven't seen the real Joe Biden. You didn't see the real Joe Biden last night, and we're going to win this thing. I mean, that's in essence what he was saying.
Right.
Now you have to throw in the Joker card with Kamala. You know, she's been the loyal vice president. She has protected her boss, continues to do so, and she's not going to go willingly.
Right.
They're going to have to find a way to make it impossible for Kamala to support the continuing of this campaign. And I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
This is her only chance. And you and I talked about this off mic, Rudy. I mentioned to you, she went into this VP position 4 years ago, fully expecting Joe to not make it to the end of the first term. That's the main reason why she went ahead and took the number 2 position, because she knew this was going to be her best shot at being able to get into the Oval Office and sit behind the Resolute desk. That's why she took the job, because she fully expected to be able to get into the Oval Office as POTUS before the re-election season kicked in.
Right.
The reality for her is Uncle Joe had no intentions on going anywhere. And
she was actually an insurance policy, so they couldn't get rid of Joe.
That's exactly. So, with all of this being the case, you know, we're looking at a really, and I said this to your audience on Saturday night when you asked me to say a few last words. I said, I don't need to, except get ready, folks. It's going to get really interesting.
Yeah. And,
you know, now what we're looking at is a continuation of the Democrat Party imploding. They really don't know what to do. Yeah. And, you know, I think there's that possibility of being Arkansas, because unless they can find something on Uncle Joe that they would say to him, whisper in his ear, Joe, do you really want us to go ahead and let them first remove you from office? And second, because don't forget, there is right now, Republicans are pushing the impeachment proceeding. The Democrats could very easily whisper in his ear, do you really want us to let the Republicans impeach and then force us to convict you in the Senate, your own party? Because you're leaving us no choice.
Yeah.
So it could be something like that. It
Sure.
could be all of a sudden Joe doesn't wake up one morning and Kamala becomes president. And then, of course, there's the possibility that the Democrats lose what little guts they have left and they let him run and literally destroy the entire national party.
Yeah.
There won't be a Democrat left in any red or purple state.
Yeah.
They won't survive this.
Yeah. I think you're giving the Democrats the power of the Democratic Party for one, and the Democrats themselves, either the run-of-the-mill voter or the politicians themselves or anybody involved in the party. I think these decisions are being made well above their pay grade. I think the choices are going to be made at the intelligence agency level, because if you're talking about taking out Joe Biden or organizing the impeachment, and like I said, either way, Kamala Harris will be on board, because she will be the first woman president, go down the history books, albeit for 4 months or 3 months or whatever. and then either Trump will take office or another Democratic ticket will take office. I would look for these things to happen probably before the convention, but who knows? Remember, Joe Biden has Secret Service, so the Secret Service is going to protect him from intelligence agencies, from heart attack darts, from food poisoning, but they can't protect him from impeachment. So I like that road you go down, because that is a plausible alternative. All of a sudden, certain documents just have to materialize, and all of a sudden, Democrats in the House are convinced, for a variety of reasons, that they should go ahead and sign on impeachment. Like I said, Kamala Harris would be the first woman president. They would get a concession from her not to run for another term, and they would be able to front another ticket. Very, very possible, more than the assassination attempt or something like that. So I'd like to shift gears. I know you're on the road, so I don't want to lose you here, because I'd like to talk about Trump's immunity ruling and the meltdown the Democrats, people like Joy Reid, are having, and also Zoe Lofgren, saying that Trump would order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate political rivals or what have you. All just nonsense charges. We all knew that immunity, pedestrian criminal immunity existed for the President of the United States. He could be impeached. He could be charged for treason and executed, but he couldn't be brought in to a municipal court and charged for whatever. Particularly for something he said. We all know he had the right to retain documents. We all know he had the right to say whatever he did to the crowd gathered on January 6th. About 1 million people, mind you, that came to Washington that day. Not all went to the Capitol. And then, obviously, these kind of, as you mentioned earlier, legally tie things into a pretzel to make them stick. And even going to the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit, these sorts of things, civil lawsuit, I guess because that happened before he was president, but all these things are obviously a blatant election interference. And you might not have heard this, they moved the sentencing from the New York City case, which was the hush money. It's called the hush money case, but it was really election finance violation, supposedly. They moved that sentencing till September 15th, while Judge Merchant looks over the immunity ruling to see if the case is going to be thrown out. But this is another wrinkle that we have after August, before the election in November, 2 months out, they could put him in jail, but it won't be this month.
Well, Merchant, he actually lost his balls. He took the easy way out.
Yeah.
So,
well, I have to add this wrinkle too, is that what I read in the New York Times is it wasn't just Merchant's ruling, prosecutors agreed. So the prosecution and the judge colluded into moving the sentencing. Very strange.
Well, that's just, Rudy, that's just a continuation of the corruption and the coordination that went on between the leaders, starting with what's his face, Coangelo and Bragg, and then getting together with Merchan. Okay, this entire case, it's like I've said repeatedly, as recently as Saturday night, they had to take the law and twist it into not one but several pretzels in order to come up with that case to begin with. They had to take a federal statute, which, by the way, had already exceeded the statute of limitations, and then roll that statute into state law after changing state law, and then charge Trump with that crime. And like you said, it's almost like a line out of a Shakespearean play. It's much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
But yet here we are we have a former president, soon to be a seated president again, who has not only been charged with crimes that don't exist, but more importantly, has been labeled a sexual predator and everything else under the sun. And it will be, every one of these cases will be overturned. You heard what Justice Thomas basically did to Jack Smith.
Yeah.
He literally neutered him and not literally, I'm sorry,
Actually.
legally turned him into a eunuch.
Yeah.
By saying you can't have a special prosecutor by the way you went about feeding this man.
Yeah. He said a private citizen. You can't have a private citizen go after a president that has immunity. And there was a BBC presenter sparking fury after calling for Donald Trump to be murdered by Joe Biden. And because he used it along the lines, oh, if presidents have immunity, then Joe Biden should have Donald Trump murdered. And that's along this SEAL Team 6 whole narrative there that obviously doesn't make any sense, because you still are checked by not only the Supreme Court, but by the legislative branch. So
correct.
Just because you're president, that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want, but you can't be dragged into a municipal criminal court because of something you said or something you did while in office as president. So there is a lot of freak out about that for sure. It's like I said, it almost doesn't deserve any debate, because we all knew that the presidents have immunity, and if they do something wrong, there are avenues to address it, but he can't be dragged into criminal court, certainly. So,
correct.
It's not worth it. It's just funny to laugh at all the Democrats for them to even comment on legal theory that they don't even understand. So,
well, here's the thing. But yet, in the last 3 years, they have systematically done what you can't do. And they have done it maliciously and quite methodically. You know, a lot of people keep saying, well, you can't throw Trump in jail. To which I say, why can't you? Right. They've already prosecuted him and gotten convictions in ways that are legally impossible to do. You can't literally do what Merchan instructed the jury to do, but yet he did it, and nobody stopped him.
Yep.
And so when you allow corrupt people, and it doesn't matter what party, but we already know which party is guilty for doing this kind of stuff repeatedly over and over and over again. When you allow corrupt people to do things that they can personally benefit from by using their office, then you no longer have a country of the self-governed. You are being governed by a star chamber that basically says the rules are for you, not for me. And this is what's been going on, and I honestly believe starting with 2016, I really am convinced now that is the reason why Trump was and will be president again, because he is going to continue to expose all of this corruption. And it's not that the Republicans go without dirt on their hands. They've got dirty hands too, but nothing like the Democrats.
Right.
Nothing like the Democrats.
Yeah, well, they gaslight everybody. They just go, we're doing this, and they do it, and people just don't say anything. But everything they've been doing up to this point, particularly over the past 5 years or so, more than that, almost 10 years now,
right,
has been illegal. They cheat. They steal. They go above and beyond, and then use plausible deniability and gaslighting to tell you it's not happening or what they're doing is legal when there's no precedent. There was no precedent for aside from the E. Jean Carroll case, there's no precedent for any of the legal things they've done to charge a president for taking documents he has the right to take, to have a convoluted theory about election interference that deals with a hush money payment, where the only evidence that would convict him came from a serial perjurer and a convicted felon himself. So you're supposed to trust him and a porn star who, again, is a criminal. She's been faced with criminal charges before. And then you have the document case and everything else that's going on here, including the crimes of Joe Biden for selling influence. And you want to sell influence, it almost doesn't bother me, but when you're doing it with a military adversary, that borders treason right there. So I want to talk a little bit more about immunity, but I also want to talk about this breaking news that Karine Jean-Pierre said tomorrow morning there'll be a press conference where they will announce, they already did announce that there's going to be a media blitz where Joe Biden is going to be paraded around with a teleprompter probably, or note cards or something, because that was the deal with the debate. It wasn't jet lag. It was because he was out there without a lifeline, no notes, no staff in the room, no teleprompter. So there's no one there to tell him what to say, and then he fails. And that's always the case. But if he's got a teleprompter, or he's got note cards, or perhaps he has plants in the audience to ask him specific questions that he's been prepped on, this might dispel some people's worries. But I wonder also, could the press conference be that he's stepping down?
Well,
or
the first thought that went through,
I should say stepping aside. I would hope if he stepped down.
But then that would leave us with Kamala.
Yeah. I just wish the both of them would fuck off, but no luck there.
Well, considering we have a Republican speaker in the House, yeah, I'd be perfectly okay with that.
Yeah. So what do you think from that? And I think you're right. I think the Democratic machine, the Democrats as an idea, are just falling apart completely.
No, they're continuing. They're continuing to run around with their hair on fire, holding their cheeks, going, I don't understand. I don't understand. Well, anyway, I'll just sit back and admire the fact that my political enemies are imploding and just enjoy the moment. Yeah. But with regard to tomorrow's press conference, instinctively, and I don't think my instincts are right on this, but instinctively, I think it is because someone has sat he and his wife down and said, Joe, if not for yourself, do it for the party. We are imploding. We will be left not as a national party. We will become a regional party by the time they get done counting all the votes on November 5th. You can't do this to us. Take the opportunity to enjoy your last 6 months in office, go on a world tour, do whatever you have to do as President of the United States, but leave the campaign to someone who has at least a chance of defeating Donald Trump. I honestly would think that is what was taking place over the last 3 days. And then the only reason why that won't happen, where he steps aside, well, there are two reasons. Number one, Kamala's going to say, well, what about me? And the other reason is his wife is going to say, oh, hell no. You're not stepping aside. You're running. And what does that say about her? First of all, she should have been dead set against letting her husband run 4 years ago because of what it was going to do to him physically and physiologically. the fact that she is, you know, basically a Lady Macbeth. You know, she doesn't care whether he dies in office or not. She doesn't want, you know, she's going to be like Hildebeest, you know, stuffing the White House china and silverware into her suitcases. And for your listeners who think that's just a joke, it was a humorous statement, but it's true. It's true. The Clintons absconded with White House flatware and chinaware and had to return it because it was caught before it went off the campus of the White House. And all they said is there was a mistake. Go back and look. And don't do a Google.
Yep.
Do a DuckDuckGo.
Yep. Because
you will find the stories that were written, and it was humiliating. That was right up there with BJ giving his used underwear to Goodwill and taking a write-off for it. So all of that is true, folks. I'm not making that up. I never make anything up when it comes to sharing valuable time with Rudy. Yeah. But I don't see Jill Biden, let alone Joe Biden, stepping aside. Instinctively, that's the thing they would do, but I don't think he cares about the party any more than he cares about the country. And I'm not trying to sound like a partisan, Rudy. I don't know a man who stumbles the way he does, both physically and verbally, day after day after day. And now the country is collectively holding its breath saying, who's running the country? It's not just conservatives and libertarians asking that question anymore. It's Democrats asking that question. And the fact that they know if it continues with the team they have at the head of the Democrat ticket, like I said, come the morning of November 6th, they're going to wake up and find themselves a regional party. That's how bad this is going to go. This is going to be historic if they allow Joe and Kamala to take this over the finish line. Well, that's because he just can't do it.
Yeah, that's my next question is, you think the electorate, you don't think the electorate, particularly the blue Kool-Aid drinkers, you don't think they could be gaslit again to tell them, oh, everything's fine. No, that was a fluke. Because there is some evidence that diehard Democrats are not only sticking with Joe, but they're picking up some voters in some recent polling. It's very strange.
Well, yeah, because the ones that they're picking up, the surnames are Gonzalez, Fernandez, anyway.
Cremated, buried last month.
Yeah, correct.
Rest in peace.
The first thing they're going to be doing on November 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th is reading the obituary column.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But they are going to get, no matter what. Look, I said it before. Democrats, and again, this is a fact, Democrats have knowingly voted for people who died during the campaign because they died so late into the campaign, they couldn't change the name of the person on the ballot. So they vote for the very person that already assumed room temperature. Yeah. Okay? Knowing that's not the person who's going to hold the office. It would end up being an appointment. And so it doesn't matter to those people. And that's at least 25 to 30% of the electorate.
Yeah.
You have, we've always talked about this. Roughly speaking, give or take, Republicans, Democrats make up fairly close to one another, roughly 40% each of the electorate. That leaves the great middle of the roaders, that 20%. And that's who Thatcher or it's for President of the United States. That's what each campaign targets themselves at. Because as much as I couldn't stomach John McCain in 2008, I sure as fuck wasn't voting for Barry Obama. Okay? So, you know, and I can go back as far as Ronaldus Magnus in 1980. I was 19 years old, and I was convinced by the lame brain media that Ronald Reagan at age 69 was a stupid old man with old ideas. I was convinced of that, even though he was the head of my party. I was a registered Republican at age 17 and 6 months. Okay? And then I looked at John Anderson, who was nothing but a turncoat, who was hoping to pull his votes away from Ronald Reagan so that he could make sure Mr. Peanut got a second term. And I looked at that and I said, well, I sure as don't want another 4 years of Mr. Peanut.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for a man who walked away from his own party and is trying to submarine the man who is at the head of that ticket. And even though Ronald Reagan sounds like an old man to me, and even though he seems to have old ideas that are truly antiquated, I do like how he says, as an American, I can be anything I want to be. As an American, I am a representative of the greatest country on the face of the earth. As an American, I can help others around the world because I've been blessed. And yeah, it sounded Pollyannish, but you know what? I remember how dark things were in 1980. And he told me the truth. He said, if I get elected, things are going to get worse for a few months, maybe a year, because we're going to turn this around. But it's going to take a while for that to happen. But I promise you that if you elect me as president, 4 years from now, things will be better than ever.
Yeah.
And by 1984, I couldn't wait to walk into the poll and pull that lever for him. I was so proud of him, and I was proud of myself for having not listened to the lame brain media. So my point being is, when it comes to Democrats, they also believe the same thing, but from the opposite point of view. And so if they have to, they will vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or for that matter, they'll vote for the devil himself, because that devil is far better than Orange Man.
Yeah.
Orange Man bad.
He's Hitler.
Right, he's right, exactly. Even though his daughter has converted to Orthodox Judaism, so it's a joke. It's a joke to see what they try to do, but the fact of the matter is, anywhere between 25 and 30% of the electorate, which is the hardcore grape Kool-Aid drinking Democrats, they're going to vote for whoever is a Democrat. It doesn't matter. That's why they're called yellow dog Democrats.
Yeah.
That's where the term comes from. I don't care. And I ran into one of those in 2012. She was an old woman, and she had a lot of expletives she used about Barack Obama. And I said to her, I don't like that man's politics, but I don't talk that way about him, and I don't believe those things. And I'm shocked. Now, she happened to be from Alabama,
right,
and she was in her early 80s at the time. But my point being is, you're the antithesis of what Barack Obama stands for, but you're going to vote for him. That's right, because he's a Democrat, and I ain't never going to vote for no damn Republican.
Right.
She's everything but spit on the floor. That's who we're talking about here, okay? That's why I said to your audience on Saturday night, we probably won't get, the polls right now show inner city blacks as high as 30% voting for Trump. You and I both know the chances of that happening are slim and none. But we don't need to get 30% of the black vote. we don't even need to get 20%. But we're going to get probably somewhere between 12 and 18%. And if we get as high as 15%, that will be the highest percentage of blacks voting for a Republican for the position of President of the United States in 60 years. 60. 60 years. Barry Goldwater. That was the last time they voted that highly for a Republican. Not Ronaldus Magnus, not even Trump in his second campaign got that high. So you have them, you have the Hispanic vote, which again, same situation. Historically, Hispanics anywhere between 35 and 40% of the Hispanic votes Republican. I think it's going to be closer to 60 or more percent this time. And a lot of it has to do with the newly arrived legal, not illegal, but legal immigrants who came to this country with what little they could take from their homeland and have started new lives. And they don't want that taken from them.
Right.
And they know the Democrats will, but they're given enough power to do so. Right. And so you have the Hispanic vote is going to go historically higher in percentage for Trump. I'm trying to come up with a demographic group, not even Jewish vote is going to be higher for Trump. Okay, so you look at all these different minority groups. Point to one where Uncle Joe and Kamala are in the polls. Not even women vote. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the pussy hat wearers are going to vote for Joe because they're one-issue voters, and you can't even say that about the evangelical on our side. Right. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Right. Evangelical. The evangelical vote has always been, especially since Reagan, solidly Republican. They're already there. And the Democrats and the press are trying as hard as they can to scrape them away from Trump by saying, well, you do realize that Trump supports the RU486 pill being made legal in all 50 states, to which most of them say, yeah, and your point is? I don't have to agree with the president on everything when it comes to abortion, but he sure as hell has done enough to help. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a moderate on abortion. And I imagine there are a lot of hardcore Democrats that are going to stick with Biden regardless. I think he's going to dig his heels in. And I don't think, no matter what happens, I think the intelligence agencies are readying their quiver, and they have the avian flu, they have World War III, they have a lot of different stuff that they could pull out and start shooting at the electorate. And who knows? They're deep fakes. They could, show Trump saying the N-word. They could do, there are 100 different things that they could pull out of that quiver and to try to convince them their way. Plus, they have the cheat. I think a lot of things are going to be deployed regardless of what happens here. But I think that 20% you spoke about, and I even think people in the Democratic Party are a little weary now because, as I mentioned earlier, that, oh my God, and I say this about conspiracy theory all the time, oh my God, what if the Republicans have been right all along? What happens if they were actually, they said Joe had dementia, and then I watched the debate and it looked like he had dementia. It reminds me, and a lot of people say this, of my grandfather who's in his 90s and kind of acts like that. Maybe they weren't because You had the White House talking about cheap fakes. Maybe they weren't cheap fakes. Maybe Joe Biden is selling influence. Maybe they did cheat in the 2020 election. What if all these people are right? Oh, my God. And that would be a great thing for the country if they came around. But I said, regardless of the sentiment of the electorate, changing, not changing, what happens with a Democratic ticket, I still think that we should be very weary of Felix and his bag of tricks making himself known close to the election.
Well, there's no question, and I'm glad you brought that up because you're absolutely right. And I have remained vigilant on this one topic because I am convinced, and again, we have history to go by on our side, and I'm not just talking about Al Gore in 2000. I'm not just talking about Hildebeest in 2016. There have been many elections over the last at least 30 years. I've mentioned on prior shows of yours a gubernatorial candidate. It was either Oregon or Washington State, the name of Dino Rossi, had not one, but two gubernatorial elections back to back stolen from him. And the one perfect example was, again, liberal Democrat judge, and the Republicans had done their due diligence, and they had shown paper ballot after paper ballot after paper ballot with names like Superman, Batman, Mickey Mouse, Adolf Hitler. And the judge literally said, there is no question Adolf Hitler did not vote in this election. But the fact of the matter is, the election has been held. It has been certified. You have nothing here to bring before me in my courtroom. And he let it happen. And when the Republicans refused to challenge that judgment, that told the Democrats, we can do this anywhere we get close enough. The key is let's just get close enough. Yeah. And that is exactly what their technique is. Yep. And that is why and I don't want to relitigate this tonight, but that is the reason why in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, and don't forget in Pennsylvania, the legislature is the only governing body that has the right to decide how an election is going to be conducted. But yet the Democrat Secretary of State and governor at the time, we're talking in 2020, said, well, because of COVID, we're going to change it.
Yep.
You don't have the legal authority to do so, but yet they did it anyway. Yeah. And they did it in a way where you couldn't qualify the votes. Yeah. All you could do was count them.
Yeah.
So you had, like I said, Arizona, you had Georgia, you had Pennsylvania, you had Michigan, you had, well, it escapes me now. There were 5 states that at the time, most people went to bed after midnight. Trump was up in every one of those states. And if you recall, they stopped counting the vote in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
Okay? They stopped counting the vote because there was a water main break. Turned out it wasn't a water main break. It was a water supply line in one of the bathrooms, and it wasn't a big deal. But that was the excuse they gave to force everyone, including the vote watchers, out of the building. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, in came 2 people with 6 huge suitcases.
Yeah.
And they threw them right under the tables where all the tabulations were being done. And the next morning, when they continued the vote, all of a sudden, Donald Trump lost the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
And it was very similar in the other states.
Yep.
So the whole point is, let's just get close enough. We'll figure out how to win.
Yep.
And the best way to do that is to keep people locked up in their homes, not be able to prove that the signature on the envelope matches the signature on the ballot, and let's just keep running ballots and running ballots.
Nope.
That's I'm worried about.
Yeah, because you could, and they were found to be multiple scans of the same ballot. And like I said, you throw away the signature envelope, there's no way to verify the ballot is authentic anyway. And I just want to close out by saying also is that they have a lot of dirty tricks. And for you Democrats out there, you Bernie Sanders supporters, you have to realize that he was gypped out of the nomination, not just in 2016, but in 2022. And WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was well aware of that, because that's what the DNC emails stated. It wasn't just about John Podesta being a pedophile. The main takeaway from those emails was that the DNC, the media, and the Hillary Clinton campaign colluded into stealing the delegates from Bernie Sanders. So there's a whole bag of tricks that they can employ to try to win. If people are vigilant and watching and know these people are fraudsters, they're really going to be able to pull another fast one on us. I hope the American people won't fall for it again. And I hope an overwhelming victory by Trump will be a way to put this to bed, regardless of what they try. So I think we're going to have to call it here, Perry. I think we're almost at an hour again, 47 minutes, so 50 minutes.
Yep.
So that's a good place to end it. We'll see what happens with tomorrow's press conference. It's probably going to be 10 o'clock because Joe Biden can't get up that early.
Well, that's if he managed to get to the podium by 10.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. In any case, thanks for joining me tonight, Perry. It was great to see you. And, great to talk to you. It's going to be great to see you one of these days. Actually, we're going to be down your neck of the woods in February. So looking forward to that. And thanks for joining me today and your keen insight into politics. And we'll talk again really soon.
I can't wait for it, Rudy. Thank you again. And here us having another exciting episode of TWP next week.
All right, man. That'll be episode 82. Looking forward to it. See you next week, man.
All right. Take care, buddy.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. There goes Perry from Florida. We discussed the Trump immunity ruling, the continued Democratic freak out. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen between now and the convention, and then now in the election. There's a lot to watch for, certainly. Please engage the channel, like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and join us next week for episode 82 of Tuesdays with Perry, or join me tomorrow, Rudy's Revelation. I go live 10 a.m. on Rumble, so I hope to see you all then. Peace out.